Right, Maui, do you have a hot take to start us with for this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna start scalding. I'm gonna start, and it's gonna frustrate people. It's gonna frustrate Kasad. It's gonna frustrate everybody from Serbia as a point. It's that NiKo is the biggest major choker in history. He's the biggest major choker in history. Let's think of all of the moments that NiKo has now when you think of him and majors. The first of which is, of course, the Boston Major, where up 15-11, losing to Cloud9. The second of which is the Deagle shot that he misses against Simple in the Stockholm Finals. And now the third of which is not even qualifying for the playoffs through two different reasons that he did not qualify. One of which was, to me, round 16 against Bad News Eagles, where he missed the free USP shot into the side of the head of Scenery, and he missed just multiple USP shots. Tush, 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 missed all of them, and that could have easily gave his team the momentum to close that map out in the BO1 stage, and also on map 3 Vertigo against Fnatic, he was just feeding it ramp, he was feeding it A, and Fnatic were just going A over and over and over again. I know this is going to get pushed back. I'm ready to hear it.
You are a fool.
It's always the opener, like, go on, hit me with it.
Hey, how can you even say something? Did you even watch the games?
I
mean, to be fair, he was citing things in the games. I was covering both.
You were at the major, right? You were there.
I was covering them.
But did you actually watch them? Like, did you actually watch them?
Yes, I was.
Okay,
Kasad, you ask anybody that is at the major what was going on in the green room. I pull up a chair individually. I pull up an individual chair to sit closer than anybody because I want to watch the radar. I want to watch the game. I'm watching so closely. I'm right there. I'm right there in front of the screen. I'm glued to it.
Listen, I'll do this. And I need you to be perfectly honest with this. I need you to be like an honest man that I know that you are. Like, right?
Yes.
I will give you $1,000.
Fucking hell. Okay.
If you go...
I'm already so scared, God.
If you go and rewatch those games and tell me if we have the same opinion. $1,000 in cash in front of all these people that are watching, I'll give it to you if you rewatch the games and if you have the same opinion. But let's start from the start. Boston. You were how old were you? 17 then? Back then? Did you watch that?
He's not that young.
I was like 26 or something. I was like 25 or 26. Yeah.
Anyway,
it was a good joke though. It was a good joke. Go on, fair play.
In Inferno 15-11, and not just the 15-11, the calls that were made during that half that they played on the T side was just about the worst thing that you can call in the playoff game that I have ever seen. Like in those finals. That's a choke that comes to other people. NiKo was a part of it, but he is not solely responsible for that one. That's the Boston one. So we're going to leave that in the past. The nuke on...
at Stockholm.
Stockholm, he missed a shot. He missed a shot from the Deagle, from ladder into the top hut. Simple killed him. That doesn't even mean that they would probably win that major. That mean that they would maybe win.
They would have won map 2. They would have won map 2 right there. That's all it took.
They win a map 3 on Mirage, which wasn't really a joke.
Big question. That's a question that
wasn't a joke right there. And now that they come back to them not qualifying to the playoffs or coming out of the legend stage, that is gonna tie it up to my hot take, and my tweet. And the thing is, like, NiKo had absolutely nothing to do with that in the majority of the situations. You mentioned the missed shot on
the
pistol round in the second. Yeah. NiKo had 30 and 16 on that map. He single-handedly delivered so many rounds during that matchup. He missed that one shot, and you call him the biggest major choker. You are insane. The thing is, like, that makes no sense. He's like, look at the numbers that NiKo put, the impact that NiKo does in these games, in the major. Yeah, you're talking about Vertigo and his inability to deliver any impact. I explained this in my video. I explained this in the tweet. And for people who don't know and who don't understand my tweet, some of them are classic NPCs. Some of them are genuine, normal people. I was called out at the end of the Katowice final when Huxi was about to celebrate with his teammates winning that final. Instead of celebrating with them, he stood up, came into the circle and yelled, "Are you watching, Kasad? Kasad, are you watching?" So my response to you is, yes, I'm watching. I'm watching you ruins NiKo chances to win the major. Did you? I watched that. I'm going to do that. You notice that I'm doing the demo review the last few days. And I'm going to do the Vertigo map. And shit that happened right there is possibly, but not possibly, 100% on Hooksy on that one. And not just because of the veto. We spoke about the veto and the fact that, you have NiKo, who is one of the probably most impactful players in the outside yard. Monesi, who has one of the best maps on Nuke. Hunter is playing very good Nuke. And JKS, who played the best event, who played an absolute beast throughout the whole event, he's super good on Nuke, especially on the T side. And you just disregard all these things, and you go for a Vertigo that's arguably your worst map. Second worst map after the one that you permanently banned, which is Overpass. And then you decide to go and say, like, oh, it's NiKo's fault because he had a rating on 0.65 or something. The situations that he was put in were absolutely stupid. And they had to go back from 6-12, if you remember that. It was a 6-9 half. They lost the pistol. It was 6-12. And they got to 12-12 based on Monesi and NiKo towards the A side. He did made a aggressive play on 13-13. And down the ramp, he got killed. But he also made a place on the same half, getting those kills together with Monesi, who died behind the sandbags on 14-13 or 15-13 or whatever it was. So in these cases, when you play halves like that, those mistakes, those deaths are going to happen, right? They're going to happen. They had so little margin of error to come back into that 6-12 half that Hooksy put them in. Just look at the second pistol on that map as well. Look at the calls, look at the flashes, look at the utility, the positioning, the transitional, the offense. It's just terrible. And I noted that in the new game against Vitality. And all these things brought them to 6-12. And then the individual skill from NiKo and Monesi, and the fact that it's CT side, you have the high ground on the ramp, and you have, positional advantages. You get to 12-12. They made a couple of mistakes towards the end. Monesi died, NiKo died once, which is something that you count on in a map like that when you prepare. Obviously, you don't count it to be a 13-13, but you do count on those things to happen. And they did happen in the worst possible time. Does that make NiKo choker? Absolutely not. Because he's the best rated player for God knows how many years in G2, in FaZe, in Mouse, in every team that he played. Is he a choker on Major? Absolutely not. We need to examine what the hell happened on that tournament and the tournament before that. And the structure and the shit that have been doing during the event. It's not on NiKo. It's absolutely on Hooksy.
What I would say is this, you could jump back in a second, Bowie. I would just say, first of all, I don't really have a dog in this fight in the sense that I do think NiKo's had some underwhelming moments at the majors and some underwhelming elimination games. But I also think when you say choker, like, just to be honest, I'm not implying you're not, by the way, but I'm saying if I was to say that, I'd have to also, like, go back and verify all the other ones, because basically there's another podcast where I reference this that people will see soon. But off the top of my head, I can pretty quickly, by the way, put together like a low lights finals, sometimes finals even, or like maps in like deep playoff runs where every great player shit the bed at the major. Like, I'm talking about... Olafmeister's lost a major final. Do people know that? Get Right has lost 4 major finals, by the way. Your boy Forrest, by the way, never even came close to a fucking major MVP. You know what I mean? Like, there's loads of names fucking... The joke is, actually, the guy that never won one, Guardian, played, like, exceptionally well in most of his major finals. He's actually almost an alien in that sense. People know... I mean, to be fair to Maui, he was consistent in this sense. Simple's had a bunch of screamer fucking major finals or in prestige finals in general, where he's sometimes just done that thing where you just like try to do way too much and you shit the whole bed and the game gets fucked. Like, he's had a bunch that he's fed. So I would also say, I do think people have done this thing where I think essentially Michael Jordan broke everyone's brain in sports because he made you believe if you're actually good, you never lose. And you're always the top fragger for your team in basketball context. And you're always the best player in the match, right? And I think that made people believe life is like a movie and you can just do it at will. Whereas, like, I actually think, in my opinion, it's more like even really great players, you need a bunch of shots at it And then sometimes you absolutely are just going to have a bad day. Sometimes you might even choke. There's another thing. I think you can choke without always being a choker, if you know what I mean. So I think the thing that's interesting to me is when I heard Maui talk there, I actually feel like he made more of a case there, which I think is almost inarguable, that NiKo just has some like flashpoint, no pun intended, obviously, because it's not about that. He just has moments that will stick in people's minds that were in like major finals, for example. Because I'm with Kassad on the one from the PGL one. I think that's whack, mate, because the problem is this. He was having one of the best maps ever on that nuke game. Like the CT half, he just straight carried against Na'Vi. Na'Vi was a very, very good team at the time. Everyone knows they won the major undefeated, all like bonkers stats. On the second half as well, that shot was on 15-12, as in G2 had 15. Like, they didn't just lose 3 rounds because he missed the shot. And then secondly, people never add this part in, right? It's not like he whiffed his shot, as it were, and then, you know, fucking Boomich took over and shit on him. Does no one remember how that map ended? Simple was having a really quiet game most of the map, and almost exactly around that time, like a round or two before, Simple went supernova for like the last something like 7-8 rounds. He had like that crazy like thing where he came up the vent with the AWP and shot. He had a bunch of, through the fucking door. He had a bunch of rounds where he just went absolutely mental. So spoiler, the GOAT essentially, he whiffed once and the GOAT just went, sorry, you don't get another chance at the game, and just won the other game. So that one I think is a bit fugazi. The one in the Boston major, I do think he was underwhelming in that. I also agree with Kassad though. I think put it this way, there's a reason why I'm considered like the biggest Carrigan fan ever. But I even said, look, my problem with replacing him is who were you bringing in? And I knew it was going to be like fucking Exist or Flusher or something. But I always say this, in a fucked up way, if I had the super team and I do think Carrigan choked his calls on that game. If I choked the calls like that, if I am all those players, especially the ones that had won, like the Olaf Meisters of the world, I would sort of go like, we might have to replace you, mate. Like, you know what? Maybe you go away and you get it back and you learn how to overcome this. But you used to choke with TSM and Astralis. You just choked away the final. Like, we had it, mate. It was 15-11. And what are you doing? You're doing like stupid rushes through smokes. You're doing like 4-second rushes onto a site. You know what? We can't have one thing I'll hate, by the way, as a general rule in Counter-Strike is any time you get one crack at planting the bomb and you aren't in a 1vx, you fucked up the round immediately as the IGL. Like, you have to allow a contingency that like a guy can get shot planting the bomb without clearing the site. Like, that can't be, that's not a tactic, guys, if people don't know. That's not even as Kassab did the closer. Like, if anything, you did the closer too late in the round. That's why you get shot by one bullet and it fucks the whole round. And then I'd also just say a couple of other quick things. One, that's why I say I think it's just the moments that Maui's identified. Because I agree on the one about the fucking Bad News Eagles one. That's got to be the worst example ever to give. Because on that map, that was probably one of the best maps any individual played at the major. If you don't know, on both sides he had the most kills. So even on CT side, he had like 10 kills or something, which was the most for his team. His whole team shit the bed CT side. And then on T side, bro, did you see his numbers? He was like fucking completely banging out of control. I think he had 130 ADR. Like, on that scenario, at the end of that game, you don't go like, right, in order of everyone who failed, like he's at the bottom. He's at the bottom of that list, you know. You don't start with him. You don't go, NiKo, I needed fucking 35 kills, mate. I needed even more. You know what I mean? Especially because I'll point this out as well. It's not like CT kills is like, oh, he has the resources and the spit. Like, CT kills, if they come to your site, you shoot them with the crosshair. Like, that's so I dispute completely the BNE one. You can do the Fnatic one. There's angles with that. That's why Kassad made the whole map veto case. So I just think it's a complicated topic because, like I say, to me, it touches on an abstract that no one wants to acknowledge. I'll probably do a video on it soon, which is I actually think most great players play worse the more pressure there is, and especially in major finals, because most players don't get like 6 chances. You get 1 or 2, and if you're someone, by the way, like a NiKo, remember the other thing about the PGL one that makes it different from the Boston one to me is he had no business even being there. He went God Morning as heroic to get them there, which is the old simple curse I told you, which is you're too good. So because you're too good, instead of losing like a really awesome semi-final that you frag out in and then lose and go, my bloody team, you win the match. So they go, holy shit, if they're in the final, they could win this. It's like, you go watch that series. Could they have won that? I'm with Kassad, even if they win that map, I think Na'Vi just goes, well, we had a really good chance here. We did the comeback, reset, easy clap, probably 16 fucking 9 Mirage. That's the major for us anyway. So I just think, like I say, I'm sort of in between the two positions on this one. I understand for Kassad, by the way. Like notice he didn't even say like you never played badly or whatever. He essentially just says he has reasons as to why. So I think I can see both people's perspectives. Do you have some comeback on this, Maui?
Yeah, that basically like it's about like the whole choking thing, and I'll just open up this.
Like, by the way, in
there.
this, at some point in this answer, can you try and do what I did there? Can you contrast it against other players? Like, is there other players that make it more egregious that NiKo choked, for example, or is it just NiKo in isolation?
Most all-time great players have had bad finals in CSGO. There's not like one guy that's just like suddenly just the most clutch player ever, which is why the reason I'm opening up this discussion. And I'll be personal about it, is that Yanko has to always retweet these fucking Steph Curry fucking cherry pick stats about last 45 seconds doesn't make a go-ahead basket. And you know what? Yanko just fucking loves that shit, okay? But it's the most cherry picked bullshit ever, because if you look, it's like, oh, we want to go over that with that method. How many kills did NiKo get in the last 4 rounds of his event? 0. First death. Last 4 rounds, up 13-12. 13-12, who was the first to die? NiKo. 13-13, who was the first to die? NiKo. 14-13, who was the first to die? NiKo. 15-13, who was the first to die on his team? NiKo. So it's just like, you can cherry pick these things in any direction. Do I think NiKo is a big choker on massive stages? Not really. He's actually won a handful of championships, but that's kind of the ethos of this show, is that you're trying to just like put forward some kind of idea that just fits this like convenient narrative. And it's like, is NiKo... I'll give a couple other ideas and stats that maybe make you like question this or open up the dialogue a little bit more. Is that in NiKo's 13, in my eyes, S-tier LAN championships, he won the MVP in 7 of them. So it's like half of those he's not winning it. So is he always the hard carry mega fragger for his team? Actually, frequently, yes. It's just that you honestly, like, you could, you know, flip a coin and half the time it's somebody on his team that's actually doing a little bit better than him. So I'm not necessarily, I personally think NiKo is top 2 rifler in CSGO history. I just think that when we like want to throw these labels on people, there's a lot of angles you can tackle it at. And that's why, fuck you, Yanko. Steph Curry's not a fucking choker. Like, he's doing it all in the 3rd quarter. So yeah, like, but I think the conversation's there that he has a lot of his memorable moments in these choke scenarios, and he's fallen short time and time and time again. No, I don't think anyone's done it 3 times like this, where it's like, get right in the early 5 majors. Yes, he had some bad ones, but like he also had some really good series too in some of those. So I wouldn't necessarily throw him under the bus too. I just think that the conversation's open, and it's why I think cherry picking choke stats is kind of a fruitless effort, because honestly, like you're saying, Michael Jordan made us brainwashed into believing that everybody can do it like a hero every single time. But in reality, people are going to regress to their mean a lot of the time in terms of their output. And NiKo actually usually does very well, but in a lot of these big moments that the crowds and fans are going to remember, he actually came up short.
By the way, just as an aside, because I'll actually use the basketball reference, that's actually one thing I do hate, because essentially I actually think NiKo and LeBron have similar qualities, mate. I actually think like they are both exceptionally good players. It's almost undeniable. If someone wanted to have them as like the best for whatever reason, they can do it. I'm not going to do it. But the reason why I don't accept the idea they're chokers, because when you say choker, people do think it means you choke every time. You're not a winner. You can't win. The reason why that doesn't even work for LeBron is exactly what Maui just said there. So, by the way, the irony is that LeBron and Steph Curry fans waste their fucking time having the argument about who the choker is. You dumb motherfucker. They're both the same player in the sense that they both just like dominate the first half and the 3rd quarter, and then yes, they need someone else to close the game. Like, that doesn't mean they choke. Like, a choke would be like you did nothing and then you also did nothing in the 4th quarter and you didn't win the game. Like, so to me, I think it's whack. Like essentially that's what I was saying about the other thing. Like, if you carry a map that they lose and then you lose a later game, it's like, wow, I won the fucking game before. Like, what am I supposed to do? So, do you have anything else on this, Kassan, before we move on?
Yeah, the thing is, like, it's not the choking is like when you have a map that's like 518, right? That's a choke when you shit your pants because of the match is big, and it's like you don't deliver any frags, you don't deliver any impact at all. You just all over the place. You don't do anything. That's a choke, right? That is a choke. It's not a choke if you drop 30 frags and 16 deaths and you miss a shot in the pistol against Seneri or whoever that was, and it's just like immediately you are labeled as a choker or something, right? It's not a choke if you miss on a 15-12 deagle shot from ladder into the top hut. You said yourself, Duncan, he had a great game, that map. If it wasn't for his game, it wouldn't even be 15-12. Yeah. It would be 10-16, 9-16. So yeah, the choke would be if he's like, he has like 9-22 or something, right? 7-11, 7-19, whatever, right? Something like that. That would be a choke, and I would probably agree. Like, if that thing repeated over the course of the map after map after map that means something, right? But it didn't happen, so there is nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, I set my stance on when it comes to the last map against Fnatic. It's just I was even looking at the stats in the last 6 months. Nuke was 14-3 for G2, and Vertigo was 4-4. Like there is no humanly earthly power that can make me change my mind when it comes to the veto.
Yeah, I would have gone with Nuke also. I would have gone with Nuke also, Kassad. I thought it was kind of crazy that they went with Vertigo. Like they had to have spotted some very particular weakness. But it's like if you're basing your whole reason for third picking your life at a major on an anti-strat, I actually think that's just generally a flawed idea, because the other team can just switch up what they're doing a little bit with a single adjustment if they recognize you're abusing that flaw in their game plan. So I thought that was a failure in the veto.
Listen, even the map against Vitality in the first round, they were 13-13, at some point. They'll also be in the second pistol, 10-7, 4v2. There is a push from Hooksy. I did a demo review, and NiKo is falling back, Hooksy is pushing forward. And it's obvious call, let's push together. They die together, they lose 2v4, they don't have the money, they force buy, they lose 12-7, they come to 13-13, they go into an upper side against Hooksy, and they win the round. So it's just a lot of these things that people don't see if they don't rewatch the game. So that's why I recommend you rewatch it and see what things that I saw. I'm sure that you're gonna see them. The rotations, the way they move, the way they call, the way he uses the utility, the way he rotates, the way other people rotate because of it. It's just all connected. And if you watch it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Anyway. It's Hooksy's fault.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.